Hello, everybody. Thank you for joining me today. I do truly appreciate it. And I'm doing the first ever reading wrap up video for this channel called It's Terrific after doing my first ever TBR. So I've done a reading wrap up, but I didn't already make a commitment on that one. I just told you what I read. This one I put myself under the gun, told you what I was gonna read, and now I gotta own up, fess up. How did I do? I got to give you my report card for that TBR for the month of April. It is now May. What did I read in April? I told you what I was going to try to read. How did I do? So I told you I was going to do 6 books. For me, that's about as good as I do. When I read the books, the best months are 6. I know everybody on YouTube reads 10 times more than that. I try to read for at least 1 hour and 2 minutes every day. I don't know where the 2 minutes came from. I set an alarm, and I figure at some point I'm going to be... What's that? I'm going to be interrupted. I'm going to stop for a second, check something. So I gave myself an extra couple minutes on the alarm. Now, that's what I do. Just what I do. I don't know. I'm silly. But anyway, I read for 1 hour and 2 minutes. Sometimes when that alarm goes off, I can't wait to close the book. Had enough. Sometimes when that alarm goes off, I push the stop and I just keep on going. But anyway, 4 to 6 books, that's kind of what happens. So how did I do in April of 2024? That's what the world's been asking me. Nobody's been asking me. Nobody's asked, nobody cares. But I'm going to tell you anyway because you tuned in. What else am I going to do, you know? So my reading wrap up consisted of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 books. I said I was going to read 6, and I read 5. I'll tell you what I read in order. I read Stephen Graham Jones' Don't Fear the Reaper, and I just actually made a book review video on this one a little bit late, and I haven't even posted it yet. But in that video, I tell you all about it. I tell you a lot about it, so I'll keep it brief, and you can watch that one if you want. But Don't Fear the Reaper is the second book in Stephen Graham Jones' Indian Lake trilogy. Trilogy would infer 3, where I come from, anyway. Although where I come from, when I go to McDonald's and I say I'd like a couple of double cheeseburgers, I usually get asked, how many? That's where I come from. Anyway, so this is book 2 in the Indian Lake trilogy. I liked book 1, My Heart is a Chainsaw, a lot. I liked it a lot. I liked it more than most people liked it. This one, most people liked it. So did I. It was a great book. Now, I'll tell you one knock on it is when I finished reading, I was a little bit confused. And this is not a spoiler because it's about slashers and killers. But I was a little bit confused. Who killed whom? That's the question I was left with. I looked it up online, and a lot of people are asking, okay, what gives? Who killed whom? But in a nutshell, at the end of My Heart is a Chainsaw, our main character, Jade Daniels, and her new friend, is she friend, Letha Mondragon, they were left the way they were left. Jade, spoiler alert, maybe I should say that now. They're left at the end of My Heart is a Chainsaw. Jade is suspected of a crime, a serious crime. Letha Mondragon had her. The sheriff is in bad shape. It's bad. The story ends, lots of bad stuff happening. We move on to the sequel. We have Jade Daniels, who now wants to be called Jennifer. We have Letha, who has had all sorts of reconstructive surgery, and she's not 100% yet. She has trouble with this fake jaw that she's had him built into her face. She's married to a guy who you would not think would be a sheriff's deputy. We have, and she's got a kid. And we have a killer who's done a lot of killing in a lot of places, using a lot of MOs, being given a lot of names by the media. He's been arrested and he's being hauled off through the Rocky Mountains, and a big storm comes and he escapes. And he's loose on the town of Proof Rock. So he's the serial killer described very well. With the description, he's big, he's huge, he has long hair which covers his face almost like a mask. He has a hook. Great description, great slasher type character. And we have some other returning characters in this book. And killings start. And we think we know who the killers are, but then we find out maybe we don't. There are other things afoot in the town of Proof Rock. So some of the differences between this and My Heart is a Chainsaw. My Heart is a Chainsaw is told entirely through the viewpoint of Jade Daniels, Jennifer. Don't Fear the Reaper is told from the viewpoint of multiple characters throughout, and it kind of changes viewpoints, perspectives throughout the story. But it's great stuff. I'm a fan of Stephen Graham Jones. I had read Stephen Graham Jones' book Mongrels, and I loved it. I'd read The Only Good Indians, and I really didn't like that one a lot. It was okay. And so when I read My Heart is a Chainsaw, for me, I was saying, okay, this is the book for me, the make or break. I kind of had the attitude where if I don't like My Heart is a Chainsaw, that's 2 out of 3 that I didn't really like. I think I'm going to walk away. I didn't walk away. I became a fan. I read that one, I loved it. Read this one, I loved it. I recommend the series. I'm going to read the 3rd book, and I'm afraid because it's a trilogy, that means the 3rd book is the end, and I don't want it to end. So my logic is, as long as I don't read the 3rd book, for me, it ain't over, man. So I don't know if I really want to read the 3rd book, but I will. I'm just being silly. I'm sure it's great. I love these 2 books. I do recommend it. You must read My Heart is a Chainsaw first. If you pick this book up off the shelf and start reading it, you are starting in the dark, in a hole, underwater. You're going to be having trouble. You probably won't enjoy it as much. So read My Heart is a Chainsaw, then check out Don't Fear the Reaper. All right, so that's the first one I read in the month of April. The second one I read is also a book in a series. And this is the Harry Dresden Files, Book 3. The first book was Stormfront. The second book was Full Moon. And now Book 3, Grave Peril. Harry Dresden Files is pretty much a modern day, late 90s, early 2000s. He's a wizard, and he's like a detective in the city of Chicago, Illinois. Chicago. It's Chicago. I must have mispronounced it. I know. Anyway, he's a modern day wizard and a detective, and there are all sorts of fantasy type of characters involved. Full Moon, we had werewolves, which was cool. And in Grave Peril, we have, if you don't have werewolves, what do you get? You get vampires. Great stuff. Great stuff. And Harry Dresden is a detective. He works with a cop, a lady cop, and most of the cops really don't dig him, and his friend, the lady cop, really seems to be pissed at him more than she is happy with him. But he's got to help solve stuff that normal cops can't solve. They can't figure out this wizarding world and this magical world, and so they bring Harry Dresden in to solve the problems. And Harry Dresden is an imperfect person. I've heard Jim Butcher refer to Spencer. If you ever read Robert B. Parker's Spencer series, which I read one of those this month too. He's a detective, and he gets into stuff. He's an imperfect kind of guy, and I can see those similarities. I can see similarities between Harry Dresden and a lot of the noir type detectives, even before Spencer, after Spencer. There's a lot of similarities there, and I like it a lot. And Grave Peril is a good one. So I forgot to give you a rating for the Don't Fear the Reaper. I want to say 4.5 out of 5 for that one. It wasn't perfect because it left me confused a little bit on who killed whom. I like to have stuff tied up. That's just me. And on this one, I'm going to say probably the same. 4.5 out of 5. Here's the problem. The problems I had with this book. 4.5 seems like a pretty daggum good rating, I'd think. But I started this book saying, I missed something here. We got Harry Dresden and a character named Michael, who they're long friends and working together, and I don't know who the heck this Michael is. I had to stop and say, wait a second, did I miss a book? I read the first one, I read the second one, and this is the third one, right? Felt like I missed something. They jump right in, and I'm lost. But mashing the buttons on the internet kind of helps. I said, who is this Michael character in grave peril? And other people started explaining it. And they started saying, hey, dude, you don't know who he is because you're just now finding out who he is. We're learning on the fly. And so that first part, I was kind of confused. Another knock, I'd say a slight knock on this book, is it seems like Harry Dresden is on his last leg often. He's out of gas. He's used up all he's got. He's failed. And he goes on to do it again and again and again. So I feel like you go to the well one too many times in this book, perhaps. But again, this is stuff that is common. Lots of people are doing it, and it seems like as time goes on, it happens more and more. It's like in professional wrestling, when you have a wrestler who has this finishing move. Jake the Snake Roberts hits the DDT. It's over. 1, 2, 3, it's over. Every once in a while, he hits a Hulk Hogan with a DDT, and it's 1, 2, Hulk Hogan kicks out, hulks up, comes back. That's cool. Now, what happens if that happens 5 or 6 times in a match? It loses its luster. And I think in books sometimes, in movies sometimes, you go to the well one too many times on a little gimmick like that, a little trick. And for some of us fans, we don't like it. Once it's good, after that, it becomes too much. And that's kind of where I was at with this. That hurt it a little bit. But I loved the characters. I loved the story. I loved Harry Dresden's resolve. I love his resourcefulness, where he will seem to think up a way to escape. And I love the fact that seemingly on the fly, he comes up with a plan in the end, and it works. And I like that. I like it. I love it when a plan comes together. The A-Team, Hannibal. And so the plans come together for Harry Dresden in grave peril. And guess what? I liked book number 1, book number 2, book number 3. I'm a fan. I'm going to read on. I'm not going to read them all on together. Separate this stuff out. I've gotten to where I like to separate stuff. A little bit of this and a little bit of that and a little bit of the other. And I'll get back around to it soon when I get in book number 4. There it is. Grave Peril. I strongly recommend. Now, on that series, it's not quite as critical that you read everyone in order, so far at least. I'm on book 3, so I'm a real expert, right? But I think I could jump into Grave Peril and figure it out without having read the first 2. But still, you build that building step by step. It's best to do the steps in the right order. So I do recommend read them in order, starting with Stormfront. But most folks will say the series gets better as it goes. And a lot of people said that Grave Peril is that point where it really gets good. So I've got a lot of bright future ahead of me. I'm looking forward to it. The next book that I read in the month of April, I mentioned Spencer, Robert B. Parker's Spencer. And this one is God Save the Child. This is the second Spencer book. I first heard of Spencer. To me, Spencer is Robert Urich, the old TV show from the 80s, Spencer for Hire. My mom was a big fan. We watched every episode. So when I think of Spencer, I see Robert Urich, and I don't think that's a bad thing, reading these books now all these years later, 40 years or so later, reading this book and picturing Robert Urich. I think it helps me. I've got an advantage over the people that were reading these books when they first came out. Perhaps I get to picture Robert Urich fighting, Robert Urich dating, Robert Urich drinking, Robert Urich eating, cooking, watching birds, all that stuff. One thing I noticed reading this book, the second book in the series, is I wonder, Robert B. Parker, was he a bird lover? He spends a lot of time describing the birds, how frequently or infrequently he sees a particular Baltimore Oriole or a different kind of bird, the sounds they make and what they're doing. Seems like he's into birds. He also seems like he's into food, because he does a lot of describing on how food is prepared at more than one place in the book. He also seems like he's into fashion, because he's very detailed on what people are wearing, the fashion. I don't know what the heck kind of shoes a person might be wearing. What do you call that type of leather or that type of a coat? I don't know that junk. Look at how I dress, though. But Spencer does, and Robert B. Parker writes Spencer. So I get the impression that Robert B. Parker, at least in this point in his life, was into a lot of that stuff. But anyway, God save the child. Spencer has been hired to find a missing teenage boy. The mother is it bad to say a wacko? Because that's my first description. The mother is a wacko, but I feel like you're not supposed to call people wackos, even fictional characters. She is the correct term, the culturally approved term for what would have been called a wacko at one point. Whatever that is, let me know. She's not normal. Something's wrong. I'm all right, though. Anyway, his mother is, she loves the acting and the showbiz, and she's not interested in really being a mom or being a wife or doing anything except stuff like that, acting, showbiz, whatever. His dad, the boy's dad, is a hardworking owns a construction business, building stuff. That's kind of his life. He comes home. The mother dominates. The husband, he's lost patience. He doesn't have any interest. He's frustrated. He'd rather not be there. So the kid grows up like this with a father that in the home has no influence and a mother that has all the influence and doesn't care about anybody else but her own self. The kid's missing. The cops can't find him. So Spencer's brought in. And Spencer asks questions. He's a great detective. He asks questions that nobody else thought to ask. When you ask questions that nobody else thought to ask, you get answers that nobody else gets. So that's what he seems to be good at. And he stumbles into this bodybuilder. In this era, bodybuilding was not as widespread as it is now. It was not as culturally acceptable or mainstream as it is now. So bodybuilders were kind of an outcast. They were looked upon as there's something weird going on. And there are also some stereotypes in this book that probably aren't accepted today. That definitely aren't accepted today. But think about when the book was written. There are some stereotypes here. Multiple different kinds, about multiple different kinds of people. But he comes across this bodybuilder who has a really rotten attitude, and I won't go any farther there. But needless to say, Spencer unravels the knot, unties the knot, gets all the little pieces out. He figures it out. And don't forget, Spencer used to be a boxer. So there's some boxing in here. And I get the impression that Robert B. Parker was also a boxing fan. He describes very detailed how Spencer fights using boxing terminology, which is cool, which is interesting. It really takes you back to an era, and that was neat. It's like going back in time. So, God Save the Child, the Spencer series. This is book 2. Book 1 was phenomenal. Book 2 is great. And I want to give them both right there, right in that 4, right about a 4. But it's a 4 that I liked a lot, you see. So it would be like a 4+, borderline 11. I mean, good stuff. Good stuff. I'm going to definitely read this series on and on and on until I get sick of it, like everything else. All right, book number 4. And I did a book review on this one, which I haven't posted yet as well, but you'll get that, what I thought. And that's Bentley Little's The Store. I've never read anything from Bentley Little. Jeff Terry on the Jeff Word podcast has been, Jeff Word, whatever he does, Jeff Word YouTube channel, He's been saying lots of bad things about Bentley Little for years now. Not a fan. And so I thought, hey, I ought to read that guy and see what all the fuss is about. Stephen King says he's the poet laureate of horror. Whatever that means, I do not know. I read The Store. It seems to be the most recommended book of Bentley Little's, plus Levidian Publications. Brian James Friedman, the guy that owns that great limited edition publishing company, published a nice signed limited edition version of The Store, which I had to get. I couldn't pass it up, even though I'd never read the book. It sits on my shelf, so I had to read the book to find out, do I keep or does it go? Does it stay or does it go? It'll stay. We'll just say that. It'll stay. Reluctantly, kind of. I didn't love the book. The Store is about this business, this franchise that opens up these stores that sell everything under the moon and does every service under the moon in small towns where they have little competition except for the local vendors for the most part. and they grease the palms of the politicians. They make threats to the politicians so they can get things their way, do things that they want to do the way they want to do it. The laws don't matter. And they make it happen with influence, with money, with threats, with bullying. They put all the other businesses out of business, and they take over everything, not only the market, but the municipal functions. They take over everything in the town. They take over the town itself. And at first I thought this was going to be like a let's bash Walmart sort of a thing. Easy target. Lots of people bash the Walmart. I'm not even really a big fan, but I'm not a fan because it's too big, too many people in there. It takes too long to get in and out. I like quicker stuff. I like simpler shopping, and I don't need to see everything all in one big giant store. But that's me. Walmart's cool though. Other than that, hey, you can find all kind of stuff there. I really don't have a problem with the Walmart, but a lot of people have worried over the years about what the Walmart would do. Walmart's been in the town I live in for probably almost 30 years. Our hair salons are still doing well. Our tire and lube shops are still doing well. We got a couple local hardware stores that are not the Home Depot or Lowe's. They're still at least there anyway. Our bakeries, they're doing well. We have meat markets. We have produce stands. We have gun shops. So they haven't run these other businesses out of business. But anyway, the Walmart's there. I was worried that this would be like a bash the Walmart sort of thing. And you can bash the Walmart all you care, all you want to. I don't care. I just don't want to read a book about it. But it's not. It starts off that way, but it turns into true horror. Unrealistic stuff that couldn't happen in real life. It goes off that deep end into fictional horror. And I like that about it. I liked it when it made that turn. I liked it. All right, now we're getting somewhere. We're getting something fun. And I liked Bentley Little's writing. From the very beginning, he had me. I wanted to know. I wanted to know the characters. I wanted to know what I was getting into. It read very well to me. It bothered me. A couple of points bothered me. And it all had to do with sexual stuff. The sexual stuff that was happening with the store. And then something at the end, not at the end, towards the end, happened. And it kind of ruined it for me. Because it's something, I just don't think I don't want to get into it. But there's another part towards the end that ruined the book for me. I'll just leave it there and I won't get into any farther than that. So I would have rated this book a lot higher if you subtracted those two basic things, especially the one that I said ruined the book for me. If you took that out, I'd give this book a higher mark. I'd say it may be a 4 out of 5. But at the end of the day, when I think back about the negative parts, the things that disturbed me and bothered me. And I want to rate it maybe a 3.5. Kind of generous. I would really say 3, but I did like most of the books. So 3.5 is where I'll put the store. And I'll probably read something else from Bentley Little. I'll give him another shot. And I guess for now, I'll keep the Levidian Publications edition of this book. For now, we'll see. And what else do we have? Last one. I said I'd read 6 and I read 5. And that is John Portland's. Can you see that? John Portland. Yeah, John Portland. Read it right there. John McPartland's Tokyo Doll. And this is 50s Noir, published by Centipede Press. I never even heard of the book until they sold it. And I had to get it. It sounded great to me. And I read it. And I loved it. This is 50s detective stuff. So this is before the Spencers. This is before the Matthew Scudder. Those things. This predates all that. Just after World War II. And our main character is in Japan. And he's been sent by somebody in the government to find this virus that this Japanese scientist has developed that is supposed to cure radiation poisoning. So you can infect people with this virus, and then the radioactive fallout from post-nuclear attacks would not kill people. They would be saved. Sounds great. And our main character here, Mate is his name, he was in thinking of all the lives that could be saved if he finds this virus that this Japanese scientist who supposedly hates America and would destroy before he let America get a hold of it. He's got to go get it without this scientist destroying it. And he's on unofficial business, so nobody can know what he's doing. And he's in Tokyo, and he runs into trouble after trouble after trouble. But he's determined, he's tough, and he's smart. And I really liked it. I'm kind of sad now after reading this book. Because unlike Spencer or Scudder or Philip Marlowe, there's not a bunch of other books I can read about this character and his further adventures, which I wish I could, but I can't. It's kind of sad. It's a one-off. In fact, the author, John McPartland, what do they call him? Portland. The author didn't write much. When I look on Goodreads to see what else there is from him, I gotta read more. But he didn't write much. And what he did write didn't get read a lot. At least anymore, it's not rated a lot because there's very few people rating it on the Goodreads or any of his books. But I'm going to read more, and I'm glad that I have this. This was another one of those, does it stay or does it go in the collection? I wanted to read it to find out, do I need to keep it or not? It's a keeper. And if Jared at Centipede ever produces or publishes any more from the author, well, guess what? I'm going to put more on the shelf right beside this one. I liked it. I liked it a lot. But anyway, I can think of no more lies to tell. Thank you for your time. I do truly appreciate it. C'est la vie. Baby. To do.